In the 1960s, drag racing was changing almost faster than the cars themselves. Stock-bodied machines became superstockers. Superstockers became factory experimentals. Wheelbases moved, engines moved, horsepower climbed, and eventually, entirely new categories like funny car and pro stock emerged from the experimentation. Standing near the center of much of that transformation was a racer who looked almost strangely neat for the world he inhabited. White shirt, white tennis shoes, an immaculate race car, and often an unlit cigar. His name was Dick Landy. To fans, he became Dandy Dick. But underneath the polished appearance was a serious racer, engine builder, and mechanical thinker, who spent nearly 2 decades adapting to one of the fastest changing periods in American motorsports. Landy raced Fords, he raced Plymouths, and eventually he became one of the men most closely associated with Dodge performance. He competed in stock, superstock, and AFX. His altered wheelbase Dodges became part of the transition toward what would eventually be known as funny cars. And when NHRA created Pro Stock in 1970, Landy was there too. But Dick Landy's story didn't begin with a Hemi-powered Dodge. It began much more simply, with a borrowed pickup truck. Richard Joseph Landy was born March 15, 1937, in Van Nuys, California, and grew up in Granada Hills in the San Fernando Valley. It was an almost perfect place and time for future drag racer. Southern California, after World War II, was becoming the center of America's hot rodding culture. Young men were modifying inexpensive cars, experimenting with engines, and gathering at drag strips that were beginning to transform informal speed contests into an organized sport. Cars were already part of Landy's world. His father was an auto mechanic who operated an auto body shop. Dick joined the Igniters Car Club and owned a 1940 Chevy convertible that he modified, although he never formally raced it. But automobiles weren't his only talent. At San Fernando High School, Landy became a standout football player. After graduating in 1955, he studied mechanical engineering at a junior college. He also worked with high-performance marine engines. The combination was already there: mechanical curiosity, competition, and speed. Then in 1956, 19-year-old Dick Landy and his friend Vince Hart decided to enter a borrowed Ford pickup at San Fernando Raceway. There was nothing particularly historic about the plan. They simply entered the truck in the pickup class and won. So they came back. Week after week, the two experimented with the truck, searching through Ford's parts catalogs for combinations that remained within the rules but made the pickup quicker. According to accounts at Landy's early career, they eventually collected dozens of trophies. It was exactly the kind of race education that would define Landy's career. Read the rules, understand the machine, find something everyone else overlooked, and make the car faster. When rule changes eliminated the class, Landy briefly returned his attention to boats, but drag racing had already taken hold. By the beginning of the 1960s, Landy was racing production-based Fords. There was a 1960 Ford with a 352, then a 1961 Starliner with a 390, and a 1962 Galaxy powered by Ford's 406. This was before the large professional race teams that would eventually define drag racing. Landy worked as a mechanic, financed much of his racing himself, and spent his weekends competing at Southern California tracks. But something important was happening in Detroit. The automobile manufacturers had discovered drag racing. Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler understood that winning on Sunday could help sell performance cars during the week. And Chrysler had developed a particularly serious weapon, the 413 Max Wedge. Landy recognized its potential and moved into a Plymouth Superstock. The decision would eventually change his career. The Max Wedge wasn't always easy to live with. There were broken parts, tuning problems, and the constant experimentation that came with racing new equipment. But Landy understood engines. More importantly, he understood how to make an entire combination work: engine, suspension, weight transfer, traction, and driver. By the early 1960s, his performance had attracted the attention of Chrysler's racing operation. The independent Southern California racer was becoming something else, a factory-backed professional. And as Detroit's horsepower war intensified, Dick Landy was about to receive some of the most powerful machinery Chrysler had ever produced. In 1964, Chrysler unleashed the 426 Hemi on drag racing. Landy received one of the lightweight Dodge 330 sedans built specifically for competition. The formula was straightforward. Take weight out, put horsepower in, and make something that still resembled the automobile setting in Dodge showrooms. Landy's Hemi Dodge reportedly ran an 11.14-second quarter mile at Lyons drag strip and became one of the first stock class machines to exceed 130 miles per hour. But racers were already looking for the next advantage. The biggest problem was traction. The tires of the period couldn't handle the rapidly increasing horsepower, so racers began experimenting with weight transfer. Move the engine, move the axles, change the suspension. Anything that could put more weight over the rear tires when the driver launched the car. The result began to look increasingly strange, and Dick Landy was right in the middle of it. His experimental Dodge received extensive chassis changes, including relocation of the wheels and straight front axle. The car might have started life looking like something available on the Dodge dealership floor. It certainly didn't behave like one anymore. Then came 1965. Dodge produced a new generation of factory experimental Cornettes. Body panels were lightened, fiberglass replaced steel in certain areas. The wheelbase was altered dramatically to improve weight transfer, and beneath the hood was Chrysler's 426 Hemi. These altered wheelbase machines became some of the strangest and most influential drag cars of the decade. Spectators saw what looked vaguely like ordinary automobiles sitting on chassis where the wheels no longer seemed to be in the right places. They were becoming something different, something funny. Exactly which machine deserves the title of the first funny car was debated for decades. Jack Christman's Mercury Comet belongs in that discussion. So do Chrysler's altered wheelbase factory experimental cars. But there is little doubt that Dick Landy's Dodges were part of the evolution moment when production-based drag racing began turning into machines that would eventually become funny cars. And Landy's 1965 season demonstrated just how effective that experiment could be. At Bakersfield, his AFX Cornet won top stock eliminator with a 10.28-second pass at 138 miles per hour. In match racing, the car reportedly went considerably quicker. Landy became one of the most recognizable racers in the country, and it wasn't just because of the car. While drag racers still carried something of a rough-and-ready reputation, Landy deliberately presented himself differently. His cars were immaculate. His appearance was clean. White shirt, tennis shoes, and the cigar that became a part of his image. Hot rod rider Eric Dahlquist gave him the nickname that would follow him for the rest of his life, Dandy Dick Landy. But the dandy wasn't merely putting on a show. He was becoming one of Chrysler's most valuable performance experts. The altered wheelbase era burned brightly but quickly. Drag racing was evolving again. Landy returned his attention to increasingly sophisticated superstock machinery as Chrysler continued developing the 426 Hemi. By the late 1960s, the factory horsepower war had reached extraordinary levels. Ford had its racers, Chevrolet had its racers, Chrysler had names like Sox and Martin, and Dodge had Dick Landy. Cars such as the Hemi Dart and Barracuda pushed the concept of a factory-built drag car nearly to its limit. They might have carried production names and recognizable bodies, but underneath, these were purpose-built competition machines. Landy wasn't simply driving them, he was helping develop them. His mechanical background allowed him to communicate with Chrysler engineers and experiment with combinations involving cylinder heads, intake systems, camshafts, and suspension and weight transfer. That relationship between driver and engineer became one of Landy's greatest strengths. He could race the car, then return it to the shop and explain why it behaved the way it did. And Dodge found another use for him. Beginning in the late 1960s, Landy traveled to dealerships conducting performance clinics. For young enthusiasts, imagine what that meant. You could walk into your local Dodge dealership and find Dick Landy explaining how to make a Mopar faster. The clinics covered performance modification, tuning, and factory parts. His race cars could become rolling demonstrations of what Dodge performance represented. Landy was no longer simply winning racers for Chrysler, he was selling an idea. The Dodge built serious performance cars for serious enthusiasts, and thousands of people came to hear him. But once again, drag racing was changing. Superstock had become increasingly complicated. Different combinations required different handicaps. Manufacturers and racers were constantly searching for advantages within the rules. The sport needed something new. a class where highly modified production-looking cars could race heads up. In 1970, NHRA introduced it, Pro Stock, and once again, Dick Landy was ready. Pro Stock represented a new kind of factory drag racing. The cars still looked like production automobiles, but underneath they were becoming increasingly sophisticated racing machines. There were no staggered starts, no waiting for a slower class car to leave first. Two highly prepared machines staged together. The tree came down, first one to the finish line won. For racers like Dick Landy, it was exactly the kind of competition that made sense. His Dodge Challenger carried Chrysler's 426 Hemi into the new category, and the opposition was formidable. Bill Grumpy Jenkins became one of the Pro Stock's defining Chevrolet drivers. Ronnie Sox became one of its great Mopar drivers. The category quickly developed its own heroes, rivalries, and engineering battles. Landy was part of that first generation. His Challenger was capable of quarter-mile times deep into the 10-second range and eventually reaching the 9s as development continued. He captured major championships on the West Coast and competed successfully in both NHRA and AHRA racing. But Pro Stock also exposed one of the reoccurring frustrations of factory racing: rules. Whenever one combination appeared to dominate, sanctioning bodies attempted to restore parity. Weight was added. Engine combinations were restricted. Formulas changed. For Landy and other Chrysler racers, those changes became increasingly frustrating. The Hemi that had helped make Mopar dominate during the previous decade was becoming difficult to campaign competitively under changing rules. Landy adapted. He experimented with wedge engines, he changed combinations, and increasingly he concentrated on AHRA competition. The results were still impressive. In 1973 and 74, Landy captured AHRA Pro Stock championships, but something had changed. The world that created Dick Landy was disappearing. Detroit was retreating from factory horsepower war. Insurance costs had risen. Emissions regulations were reshaping production automobiles. The muscle car era was ending, and professional drag racing was becoming increasingly expensive and specialized. Landy continued competing through much of the 1970s, but eventually the endless travel, changing rules, and cost of staying competitive began to take their toll. The man who had adapted from stock to super stock, from AFX to Pro Stock, finally began stepping away from the driver's seat. But Dick Landy wasn't finished with high performance, not even close. Long before his racing career ended, Landy had understood something important. Winning races required more than driving. It required knowledge. His early performance shop eventually developed into Dick Landy Industries. There, the lessons learned from thousands of quarter-mile passes could be applied to engines built for other racers and enthusiasts. Cylinder heads, camshafts, intake manifolds, Hemis, wedge engines, complete performance combinations. Landy remained deeply connected to Mopar performance, long after his days of chasing championships had ended. His company built engines, tested components, and eventually worked with Mopar Performance on another generation of high-performance Chrysler equipment. In a way, it completed a circle. The teenager who once searched through Ford truck parts looking for something that would make a borrowed pickup faster had become one of America's respected high-performance engine builders. And perhaps that explains Dick Landy's career better than any trophy. He was always looking for the next combination, the next improvement, the next way to make something work better. That mentality carried him through nearly every major transformation in factory drag racing. Dick Landy died on January 11, 2007. He was 69 years old. By then, the sport he entered as a teenager had become almost unrecognizable from the one he had known at San Fernando Raceway in 1956. The borrowed pickup was gone. The amateur stock racers who had evolved into highly specialized competition machines. Factory experimental cars had helped give birth to funny cars. Super stock had become its own sophisticated science, and Pro Stock had grown into one of drag racing's major professional categories. Dick Landy had witnessed all of it. More remarkably, he had participated in much of it. He was there when Detroit discovered drag racing. He was there when Chrysler unleashed the Max Wedge and the Hemi. He was there when racers started moving axles and engines in search of traction. He was there as the strange altered-wheelbase machines helped lead drag racing toward the funny car. And he was there when Pro Stock gave factory style racing an entirely new home. That's why Dick Landy's legacy is larger than one single Dodge, larger than any championship, and larger than the name Dandy Dick. His career tells a story of an era when drag racing was still figuring out what it could become, and every time the sport changed, Dick Landy seemed to change with it.